what was reported in one of the most important Israeli newspapers. It says that the name of newspaper is Yedioth Aronoth. They're talking about
Ahradot, Ahranot.
Ahranut,
Yeah.
yeah. And Laith, their assessment of Hezbollah and the behavior of Hezbollah, it seems that they're saying that the reason that Hezbollah is not responding to Israeli attacks, that they're preparing for a long term, conflict with Israel, but they're building up their capabilities, and they're gonna, if they come, they're gonna come big on in responding to Israel. What is the situation with Hezbollah, and what is the mindset when it comes to the response to what Israel is doing to Lebanon?
I think that's a correct assessment. Hezbollah was not going to respond to every little attack that's been happening since the ceasefire. It needed to do multiple things. One is to show the population of Lebanon that whatever the government tries to do will not succeed. So they left the Lebanese government to attempt to have the European and American guarantees of the ceasefire actually deliver on their guarantees. They also, wanted to let people see what's happening in Syria, what's happening across the whole region, what happened in Gaza with the ceasefire. So that's one thing. It wanted to make sure that the Lebanese population as a whole understands that there is no way to deal with the Zionists except to militarily defeat them. So that already happened, and they succeeded with that. The other thing is that Hezbollah has no interest in returning to a military confrontation with the Zionists if there is no final outcome that guarantees that this will not return again, the war, the constant attacks. So Hezbollah is right now building up. It built up all its capabilities, restocked itself, reorganized the military structures, installed new leaders that are unknown in the battalions that it has, and is ready for a full confrontation where it will whip the Zionists into shape, where they can return to the pre-2023, what do you call it, deterrence, okay? So if there is no full deterrence to the Zionists, there's no point of confronting them. So I think this newspaper, Yehradot Ahranot, finally, I think, understood what Hezbollah is ready for. And if there is a return to a full-scale war, this will not be a 1 day or 2 days or even 66 days. Remember the last time during the 2023-2024 war, there was a 66-day war confrontation, the longest confrontation between Hezbollah and the Zionists. And during this, Hezbollah managed to defeat the Zionists as their attempted advancement. So this time it's going to be most probably longer, and Hezbollah will have to win it to make sure that the Zionists are deterred forever.
Laith, how did you find this summit in Doha? All these, regional powers went there to talk to each other, and how do you evaluate the outcome or the will of having such a summit in Doha, in Qatar? Is that important? Is that important for the future of resistance? Because it comes with some sort of communication within, the Muslim world that is important, in my opinion. But when it comes to resistance, what is the outcome for resistance?
I looked at the lineup of guests that spoke, and it is kind of a indication of the world we live in. When you have Francesca Albanese, the Italian United Nations Rapporteur on Palestinian rights, sitting in the same conference as Abu Muhammad al-Julani, the head of HTS controlling Syria right now. So in a way, it shows how warped the world is that we live in, that somebody from the United Nations will be willing to sit with a terrorist, a head chopper in the same conference. That's one thing. The other thing that I noticed here was I watched the presentation of the former foreign minister of Iran. What's his name now? I'm blanking out.
Jawad Zarif, yeah.
Zarif, yes, Jawad Zarif. And I thought that was the most important presentation that happened throughout the Doha summit, because Jawad Zarif seems to have let go of all of the diplomatic, language that he was famous for, and spoke bluntly in the face of the Gulf monarchs and Gulf governments, reminded them about that these Gulf countries paid Saddam Hussein tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars to genocide Iran and try to destroy it after the Islamic Revolution, and that Iran, when Saddam Hussein turned around and occupied Kuwait, and in fact called the Iranians and said, "Hey, we can be buddies and let's take over this whole region together." Iran rejected that, and Iran, supported the liberation of Kuwait. So, this is the least of what Zarif said. That was kind of the most polite thing that he said in the face of the audience that is mainly from the Gulf that is sitting there. And so this, I think, indicates that the liberal side of the Iranian government, and or those who belong to the same kind of movement as Zarif, that have attempted negotiations for decades with the West and the Gulf, have now run the track to the end, and it's now back to everybody realizing that Iran has to defend itself. There is no negotiations with the genocidal West and or its local vassals. This is very important. Having Zarif speak in this blunt language, it means there's nobody left within the political elite in Iran that will try to negotiate with the West over the nuclear file, and that Iran is ready for whatever war it is coming. It's preparing itself, and it realizes that it will be attacked, even that its neighbors will most probably plot against it. So this is, I think, the most important thing about this Doha summit.
Yeah. The other thing that, Laith, when it comes to the region and the policies of Iran, we've learned, from the mainstream media in the West, they always talking about Iran wants to somehow dominate the region, and all of these sort of, the main reason of the acts of resistance is the dominance of Iran. But I don't see that, when it comes to Yemen, when it comes to Hezbollah, these are, independent institution. For example, in Lebanon, these are Lebanese people who are deciding about their future to defend themselves. Or in the case of Yemen, they're not asking Iran what to do. They do whatever they think that is right, is in line with their policies, with their strategy. But how in the world do you see that could be resonating within the Arab states, within the leaders of the Arab state? Because is there any sort of evidence? Do they have any sort of reason that Iran wants to dominate the region? What is the end game of that?
Look, if I was in charge in Iran, I would have actually dominated the region openly. Yeah, and in my mind, this has been one of the weakness of the Iranian government. It's either Iran or the United States occupies Iraq. That's the truth currently. So might as well Iran do it. It's either Iran or the Americans and the Israelis and the Turks occupy Syria. Might as well have Iran do it. But the Iranian government doesn't want to do this, unfortunately, in my mind. Most people would say, no, it's a great thing that Iran is not doing this. But in the situation of Yemen and the Houthi Ansarullah movement and Hezbollah in Lebanon, these are movements that actually have power in their country, that can influence the direction of their state, that build up themselves, and don't need Iran to come in and guarantee that the Americans don't occupy. This is why I said Syria and Iraq when I'm talking about direct Iranian interference, which in my mind, again, they should do it. I think Zarif in his speech mentioned this specific. Look, Iran is not anymore in Syria, but there's all these problems. Why isn't anybody talking about them anymore? Iran is not in Iraq. Iran is not interfering in any of the Gulf countries or Sudan or Libya, and it's all on fire. So the genocide continues in Gaza. Iran is not intervening. So where is all those talk about Iran being responsible for these problems in the world, in the region, when now it's clearly, for even a 5-year-old can tell that Israel and the Americans behind them are the main problem in the Arabic and Muslim world as a whole. From Mauritania to Indonesia, every problem you can blame it on Israel and the United States. And it's not a conspiracy. It's out in the open. So I think most of the public in the Arabic and Muslim world, anyone that was somehow fooled by this anti-Shia, anti-Iran propaganda that the Gulf countries and the Zionists and the Americans pumped in the Arabic and Muslim markets over the last 20 somewhat years, that is gone with the genocide kind of being perpetrated publicly, and with Iran being the only country that actually came to the defense of the people in Gaza, other than, of course, the liberationist movements in Lebanon, Iraq, and Yemen, who are not a full country government. These countries are still contested with the Americans and the Zionists. So now the public is also watching in the Arabic and Muslim world how no democracy was achieved in Syria with the removal of President Assad. No democracy was achieved in Libya. No democracy was achieved in Sudan. No democracy was achieved in Iraq. So this is all now the kind of the weight of the Arabic Spring and the propaganda that came with it have now been moved. I think, in a way, the axis of resistance right now, its position in front of the Arabic and Muslim people is much stronger today than it was 2-3 years ago, because of the genocide that played out, because that the axis of resistance is the only ones that came to the defense of the Palestinians, and because of the fall of Syria and Syria becoming a playground for the Zionists. Today I was watching a video of these Zionist rabbis, Israelis, in the middle of Aleppo, desecrating a synagogue, a Jewish Syrian synagogue that has been protected by the Syrian government for decades, since the Jewish members of citizens in Aleppo left to New York. By the way, most of the Syrian Jews never ended up in Israel. They refused to go to Israel. Most of them are in New York and or Montreal in Canada. But to see these, Israelis walking freely under the protection of HTS in the old city of Aleppo, entering these preserved synagogues, this shows you, of course, who's in control. And I think every Arabic and Muslim person is watching these videos of the Zionists parading themselves inside Syria and realizing how stupid they were to have supported HTS.